Hello, neighbors of Jackson County. I am Melesa Johnson, Esquire, and I am running to be your Jackson County Prosecutor. I would like to welcome you to the first installment of my official campaign podcast, Inspired to Serve. This podcast series is dedicated to amplifying the voices of those striving to disrupt the norm of violence and make a positive change in our community. In each episode, we will dive into various aspects of my platform and hear the stories, challenges, and triumphs of individuals and groups that align with my plans for a safer and more equitable Jackson County for us all. Join me as I explore the power of community-driven initiatives, the resilience of those on the front lines, and the innovative strategies reshaping the landscape of public safety. Through candid conversations and first-hand accounts, I aim to shed light on the diverse tapestry of efforts in crime reduction. So tune in, lend your ear to the voices of change, and discover how collective action and unwavering determination are shaping a brighter and safer future. Welcome to Inspired to Serve. On today's episode, we embark on a journey with a man that needs no introduction. He is a definitive civil servant. He was one of the city's first Black police officers, former member of the Board of Police Commissioners, an educator, a civil rights leader, a founder of Ad Hoc Group Against Crime, and almost Kansas City mayor. Please help me in welcoming the legend that is Mr. Alvin Brooks. Welcome, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you so very much. A great introduction.
Thank you.
Just like I wrote it.
Yes. Well, you have a lot of material to work with, Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
You've been with us for a long time, and I know that you are the busiest 91-year-old out there.
Thank you.
So let's just jump on into it and get started.
Please.
Awesome. Your autobiography, Binding Us Together, a civil rights activist, reflects on a lifetime of community and public service. You write about all of the personal moments that shaped your service to your beloved community. Can you please cover a few of those pivotal moments? Like, what led you to become the community pillar that you are?
Well, you never start out to be. But I think oftentimes people go through life and never find their niche, never find their purpose. They just live and they die, and they've taken up space and time. And I think early on, being a young Black male, raised in a family that was poor, in a community that was segregated, and you struggle to find yourself. And I think it was probably only until I reached high school, which was all Black high school, pre-1954, that you realize that there's something out there that's calling you. And I think in going to that all-Black high school, all-Black junior college, first 2 years, the kind of impact that the teachers and the community, you talk about a village, I came up in a village. And after that, on into college, and then joining the police department in 1954 at age 22. And I began to see some things that maybe there is something here that I can bring to the table of humanity. And that's what I've tried to do from those early ages as a teenager, working with a fellow called Fellowship House, which is integrated where there's adults but leadership. And so after the police department and then seeing things happening there, I decided that I had a role to play. I had something to bring to the table, something to contribute. Not any more than anyone else, but at least I knew who I was and where I was coming from, where I was going. And so over the years, I've always tried to be a person with integrity and honesty and be fair, not misuse anyone and misuse a position, not use a position for any other purpose than I wanted to serve. And so that's where I am here at a few years later.
Just a small few. And so you briefly touched on your experience as a police officer, which of course called you to work collaboratively with prosecutors in that role and to work with prosecutors as you moved on in your tenure in community service and public service. You are an authority on community policing. Can you talk to me a little about the role you think the prosecutor plays in bringing the law enforcement community closer to the grassroots community?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm an authority on community policing. I think there are a lot of models out there, and it seems as though aren't too many of them really working. Here in Kansas City, we still have a situation, but since I joined the police department in 1954, I finished the cadet school in September 1954 and hit the streets. The African American officers were restricted to just 2 districts. You couldn't work, you couldn't patrol the white district. White officers could patrol the black community, but you could not patrol. Now you can make calls in there. I began early to have a relationship with Jackson County Prosecutor, because you arrest someone on a felony that you end up going to court. So I've seen prosecutors come and go. I've seen assistant prosecutors. Some of them moved up to become judges and those kind of things. So I've seen that. I've learned something about the law, and I know right from wrong, and I've always tried to see that persons that I arrested that I was fair, under the guise of nothing else, across the board, regardless of their race, ethnicity, or gender, what the case may be. And so in working with prosecutors, I see the relationship that must exist between the prosecutor and the police, must exist between the prosecutor and the community. And I believe a prosecutor has to know the county in which they serve, the demographics, the highs and the lows, and where certain communities. I think to do that helps you to be fair and enforce the law, and realize that nobody gets a pass. I know also that prosecutors get a lot of pressure from community groups, and I don't want to name some of the incidents where some people felt this, and also sometimes they're difficult between police and prosecutor, because they feel we've had enough that we've submitted to you for you to file charges. It's more than that. That there has to be a task force within that office of the prosecutor to review those, particularly homicide cases and sexual assault cases. And I think it's very important. So you also have to get out of that office and get into the community and be at those homicide scenes and be at those sexual assault scenes, and regardless of the time of day or night. That's across the county. And so keeping in mind that that's your responsibility as a prosecutor, to cover the waterfront, to cover the whole area of the county, and particularly here, Jackson County.
Absolutely. So we are filming this podcast on the last day of Black History Month this year. And of course, if elected, I would be the first person of color to be our Jackson County prosecutor. One of the points of my platform is the importance of diversifying our prosecutor's office. Can you talk to me a little bit about your opinions on why that is important?
I think it's so important that office, as well as the police department and the courts, are diversified. I think that we need to look at the demographics or the area in which you represent. But even in that, because if you're talking about the Hispanic and the African American population, or people of color population in relation to the larger population, certainly in a minority. But I think it's not a matter of quotas. It's a matter of doing the right thing to make sure that your office is one that is diversified of various cultures and various faiths and all those that make up what Jackson County is all about. So I think it's something that certainly, as prosecutor, you ought to give that some consideration up front as you appoint people to these various positions within the prosecutor's office.
Absolutely. And next I want to talk about somewhat of a scary word, depending on where you are in our community, accountability, right? We know that the criminal legal system has not always been kind to certain demographics of people. But with that, I think the meaning of accountability has been watered down a bit. And so I would like your opinions on why accountability is important for all of our communities, especially in the moments that we are in right now.
Well, and I think that is so important. Accountability is so important. Accountability to the people of Jackson County, regardless of who they are. And make sure that not only yourself as a prosecutor, but all of those other assistant prosecutors, whichever part or role that they play within that office, that they're understanding that we're accountable for the actions. And yes, there's going to be a lot of pressure, a lot of political pressures, a lot of persons who have special interest pressures. But I think as prosecutor and down throughout from the top to the bottom, has to be ones who are very sensitive to that and not yield to that. Just do the right, follow the law. What does the law say in that particular case? What does the evidence show in that particular case? And meeting with people, I think, with the families and all is very important. When you talk about diversification, you talk about who can meet with certain families. We're still a nation, still a state, still a county, still a city that is still segregated, has race issues. And anyone says there's not something wrong, they've been drinking the wrong tea or going down the wrong road. And so I think that all of that's important. It's a job that you have to look at holistically. And if you don't do that, then you're not serving the community that you've sworn to serve. And I think that it's something that you make that in your message. That here's what I'm going to do. Don't hold anything, let it all hang out. And being elected on those kinds of principles. And I hope and pray that the county of Jackson County hears all that and look beyond one's race or one's ethnicity, but what's the best interest of as it relates to Jackson County, and who could serve us better with the kind of information that's being projected. Live up to what you say. And if you can't do it, say you can't do it, and don't straddle the fence. It's got to be one way or the other. Some cases, some matters, I think, taking the message out to the various communities, saying the same thing in the east of in Jackson County, you say in the western Jackson County, and southern Jackson County, northern Jackson, the river, which is the end of Jackson County. So I think those are the kind of things have to take place. You have to take place there. You have to be sensitive to people, and sometimes the right people at the right place can almost sense what's going to happen. They can predict what's coming up. How am I going to be pressured here with this particular case? But just take it as they come and be honest and right up front. And prosecutors sometimes have been accused of holding back evidence. That's illegal. It's unethical, and you can't do it. And that has to say, listen, we're going to present the facts as they are. We're not going to skew it this way or the other. Here's the facts. It's presented from the police department. What the judge, and it was in the warrant, allowed to happen. So it's very important.
You cannot tell me that I'm not ready for this job when I have mentors like you, Mr. Brooks. You talked a lot about accountability for prosecutors. Talk to me a little bit about accountability for and to those that have committed violent crimes in our community.
It's so important. And even though, and I've seen it happen, a person been found guilty and they say, at least I was treated fairly by the prosecutor. I don't agree with the outcome, but here my peers out there, those 12 people out there on the jury, and all this kind of thing. So I mean, they also when you talk about the indictments going before the court at the time, and I'm trying to, I just thought that's the what's when you indict, you go before what court?
Grand jury.
Grand jury. Okay, let's start again. Let me start at least to the point that. And even if the prosecutor takes a case before the grand jury, where you don't have any witness or anything, but you have, you don't have no defense attorneys there, but you present your case. And make sure the information you provide is enough that grand jury can make the kind of decision, either give you a true bill or no indictment. And then you can always, and I think that's an important thing for prosecutors. And I've never been a prosecutor. But I've seen prosecutors, I said early on. And sometimes I think some cases that have high-profile cases, that there's a lot of this, I think it's good for a prosecutor to take it before the grand jury. Let that community of jurors present the information that you presented, whether or not you've got something that's going beyond it, where you get a true bill and come back and then try it in the court. So that's what has to happen.
Absolutely. And so what I hear is, and I completely agree, accountability across the board.
Yes.
Not just for individuals that are committing crimes in our communities, but for prosecutors, accountability for prosecutors, accountability for law enforcement officers, accountability for us all, because when we hold each other accountable, we can truly take strides towards a more cohesive, safe, and solid community.
I have a real concern about the problem with young African American males. It's not easy in America for young black boys to grow up to be men. It's not easy in America with black boys. And you urban areas, you check the family courts and you check around where the urban areas. In any urban city in this nation, you find out where there is solid numbers of Spanish-speaking young people as well as African-American youth that disproportionately affected. But their numbers in their respective communities that does not coincide with the numbers in the system. Now, and I think some of the things I'm saying that prosecutor can't do everything. They need to understand at the beginning. But the things that they can do, that the way they diversify their staff, not only by race, ethnicity, and gender, but I'm talking in terms of having a person within staff to work on these kinds of things that don't necessarily do prosecution, but that do other kinds of things. And maybe some lay people, some non-legal folks can do some of that also. But it's a broad base. And I think you build on what has come before you. You see the mistakes that others have made, and you don't make the same mistake. My dad used to say, boy, if you've gone down a dark road and nobody coming back, don't you go down there. So, I mean, this is a situation that if you've seen people go that way and didn't have any success, why think that you're any better than they are? Unless it's something that really deals with the human side of things. Always keeping, first and foremost, that even though that dastardly crime that was committed by that man or that woman, or that child, boy or girl, they're still a human being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm very thankful for my current job because I understand and know a lot of the organizations and individuals that are in our county, boots on the ground, doing the real work, including your beloved baby ad hoc group against crime. And Damon Daniel is doing some amazing work over there, as well as, Pastor Mims. And so very fortunate that I get to collaborate with all of these amazing, spirited, dedicated service providers that do this work day in and day out. Now, as our last question, you mentioned a while ago that this is a tough job, and I completely agree with you.
Yes.
Given how tough it is, Mr. Brooks, respectfully, why do you think I'm the right person for the job?
Well, add on to that, not only is it tough, sometimes it's a thankless job also. You'll earn your money, your board, and your keep. I assure you that. Haven't seen it happen. Well, first of all, I think you have the energy for it. You have the background for it. You have the training for it. You're certainly academically there. I've always seen you being fair, being honest, and a person of integrity, and that is so important. I don't care what kind of background you have, what school you went to, what you've been doing. If you're not a person of honesty and integrity, where people can trust what you say. It used to be I used to say old folks used to say that, but now that I'm old folks, your word is your bond, and you live that way. So I think that you've experienced in the work that you've done, the position that you've held in time and space, that qualifies you to be the next Jackson County prosecutor, who happens to be African American.
I don't know what to say after that. Besides, thank you. Not only thank you for being here with us today and participating in my podcast, thank you for your support, and most importantly, thank you for all that you've given to us over these 91 years. I know that you didn't start on this journey knowing what the destination would look like, but I think that's what makes it so much more powerful, so much more genuine, and so much more real. And I am honored to even attempt to follow in your footsteps.
Well, if I might just, and I think you have positioned yourself throughout the years, from high school on the Kansas side to MU and all the other places, workshops and all those, and watching other people who were in their positions. You have positioned yourself for this day. And I think that the voters of Jackson County will see that as you make your presentations around and your invitations around, not giving up the kind of responsibility that you still have. So I wish you well, Godspeed, and may you be blessed to be the next Jackson County prosecutor.
And like you, I feel called to serve.
Yes.
Or maybe inspired to serve. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Again, we appreciate your time. We are sitting here with living history. And as we continue to embark on this journey towards August 6, 2024, I impress upon you and I appreciate the opportunity to earn your support. Please vote Melesa Johnson for your next Jackson County Prosecutor.
You got my vote.
If you would like to learn more, if you would like to support in a variety of different ways, please visit www.mjforprosecutor.com. Again, Mr. Brooks, we can't thank you enough for your time. And I thank you all in advance for your support, for your encouragement, and for our shared vision for a safer Jackson County for us all. Don't forget, vote Melesa Johnson on August 6, 2024 for Jackson County Prosecutor. See you next time.